Hello, my name is Stephen Popper. I'm a senior fellow at JPPI. I couldn't be with you today, but I wanted to take a few moments to give you an overview of JPPI's annual index of Jewish pluralism in Israel. The purpose of constructing this index is principally to force us to think about what we really mean by the concept of pluralism, a word easily and frequently spoken, but much more difficult to define. What does pluralism mean? Where does it matter? The second purpose was to put in one place a body of information, objective fact, subjective attitudes that would allow us to consider a number of different pieces of the puzzle altogether. Third reason was to provide a baseline. Sometimes there may be individual measures that become even more important if we look at them in terms of how they have changed over time. And then this format allows us to consider conflicting attitudes, conflicting values about what pluralism really means and why it may matter. The index itself has four main areas. The first is religion and culture. The second is education, very important for producing pluralistic outcomes. The third is civil society. And the fourth is perception of minority rights. We have surveys telling us that for the large majority of Israeli Jews, this aspect is important or even essential to their conception of themselves as Jews and their attitude towards Jewish values. Each one of these areas has one or more indicators. Now, the word indicator and measurement are frequently used interchangeably, but in this case, we mean something very specific. And what we're referring to is, what is the ideal? What is the underlying thing we would most like to measure in order to give us some sense of what pluralism may be in a particular area? Now, very often these are very difficult concepts to measure directly, and therefore we come up with these individual measurements. So each indicator has one or more measurements, things that we can actually look at that we hope will provide us with a better understanding of the underlying concept that is included in each indicator. These measures are of three types. Some are just straight data, time series. So for example, we have one measure that looks each year at the annual top 10 popular songs, then looks across the decades, determines what percentage are of Mizrahi character, and compare that to the size, the percentage of the Mizrahi population in Israel. Some of these measures are based on survey results from JPPI's own annual survey of opinion and attitudes in Israel. And some are what we call assessments. These are very difficult concepts, difficult to measure, usually a lot of dimensions, a lot of complexity. So what we've done is we've looked at external information. We've looked at surveys, other surveys than JPPI's own. We have looked to expert opinion. And what we have done is we've developed a numerical measure for three different aspects of each assessment. What is the degree of accommodation of a wide range of attitudes and practices? What is the acceptance of that accommodation? And to what extent is there a legal basis for that accommodation? And then taken together, we come up with an aggregate number. So does this index tell us definitively the state of pluralism in Israel? Well, what it does is it provides us with a snapshot, a mosaic, a pointillist painting, a lot of different pieces that begin to give us something to work with to address the question of pluralism. If one wanted to make normative assessments, is pluralism increasing? Is pluralism decreasing? Well, again, you would then have to say, what do you mean precisely by pluralism, by this underlying concept? Based on that, you would look at the information we've presented in the index. You would look at some measures more than others, give them more weight, and based upon that, based upon the specification of how you characterize pluralism, you could, in fact, make such an assessment. So with that, I thank you for your attention. I hope that this proves to be of value. My colleagues and I would very much welcome your reactions, your questions, your criticisms. And with that, I thank you very much and hope you enjoy the rest of the program.